Hello, friends. Welcome to CareersTalk. So, once again, I'm here with the second part of the question, how to split the user stories. If your team member is asking in your retro meeting, we cannot accommodate the user stories in the one sprint. So, the sprint length we want to extend. That was the question. In our last video, we saw how we can increase or decrease the length of the sprint and what are all the challenges we will face if you're doing the same, and what would be the expected results and how we can make it those things. On the other hand, to accomplish that answer or to finish that question, uh, what are the other option if your team members are complaining about the user story is large enough that they cannot accommodate um, this user story in this sprint length? What are all the options we do have? So let me start into this session. Before that, thank you so much, Sunand, for this wonderful opportunity once again for me. So let me share my screen quickly to discuss on the topic. Okay. So how to handle user stories that span across multiple sprints? Okay. So break down large stories. They are not cake recipes, but some useful strategies you can use when breaking down work into stories. For an example, workflow steps, business rules, happy or unhappy path, data types of parameters, input options or platforms, vague terms and conjunctions. So when we are breaking down the large user stories, we already aware of many techniques so called inverse criteria, and apart from that, onward techniques. So the one what I listed is also another one thing where we can break down our large stories into small chunks so that we can accommodate in the existing sprint length. Okay, so how, what and all this one? So we will see it in the next slides. Workflow steps. So flow steps. Your user stories is not like very rough, like make an order. That is what I want. So if you see in the first example, make an order. So we are having option as login, make payment. There are two options. But instead of that, if you're splitting our user stories like make an order, review your order, log in and make payment. Okay, when we are coming to option 3, still it's more refining, like make an order, review your order, log in, make payment, new user stories. The flow of the user stories, the steps, it's like more refined, and we are having multiple chunks of small chunks of user stories in between. Okay, so moving on to the next technique, business rule. So we can even split the user stories based on the business rules, like reject an order or place an order. So example, story A, if X is less than rupees $5, then in that case we can accommodate story A. And in story B is if it is a foreign address, we can have the story. Instead of having very abruptly or bluntly reject an order, you can segregate based on the business need and rules. If it is a foreign address, so at this moment in our customized program, we don't have any foreign orders. You are not about to take any foreign orders so far. Our cost for delivery is too high. Even in the same location, if you want to deliver something to the remote places, the cost is high, and there may be some uncertainty to reach the place. In that case, we can segregate that as a separate user story. So based on the business rules, we can split the user stories into small chunks. Moving on to the next slide, happy or unhappy path. So this is also another one technique we can use to slice it, our user stories, which we cannot accommodate in one sprint. So login, okay, it's very blunt. Login, is this a login right? If the users are saying yes, then it is a happy way, access my account. If it is no, then how we can, so split it in this way. If it is happy, have this user story in this sprint. If it is unhappy way, or if you are having multiple options, so look, just focus happy alone in this sprint. Just focus no options in the next sprint. So this way we can segregate. So if it is a no, 3 consecutive errors are coming, then story B, error page. What could be the error? That can be the separate, like password recovery, like that. And then what could be yes, story D, blocked password. So this is how If it is a 3 consecutive errors, if it is yes, then blocked password. If it is no, then what would be the error page and password required. So this is how we can segregate based on the happy or unhappy path. In one sprint, we can concentrate on happiness or negative scenarios. In another sprint, we can concentrate on the positive scenarios. Data types or parameters. So this is also another one option. We in our retail websites and all, we used to see this type of filters in our user stories. Say for instance, if you're taking Amazon, we will always have so many options in the left side stating that price. If you want to filter out based on the price, that will be separated. Brand or other factors like less than delivery of 5 days, or colors, or what kind of pattern, like you want animal pattern or mix and match pattern. Like that way we can segregate the data types or parameters. Okay, so we can even have that model as well to filter or to separate the user stories, and we can work on that way as well. So this is another one type of slicing technique. Input options or platform. Yes, this is one common thing where we are seeing in many places. So we will have multiple options like mobile, desktop, tablet, or printing format. So based on this input options, which format of input you want, what are all the options you want this, or if you are developing some software, we will just concentrate this particular piece of code is working on mobile first, then story B will be like this piece of work is working on desktop. So we can segregate and we can go like that. We can separate our user stories and we can make it done. This is another one options, input options of platform. This is something very interesting. Vague terms and conjunctions, really we as a scrum master want to focus on this kind of user stories, to avoid so much of confusions or making things complex. Okay, so to avoid that kind of complexity, we really want to focus on these areas like vague terms. What I mean is that sometimes our user stories will be having for an example, if you see in this one, as a frequent traveler, I want the weather application to store several days of weather data and display it offline, and display it offline so that I can see the forecast when I arrive at my destination, even if I don't have call services, cell services. Multiple thing are here. Several days, which is a very vague term. Either they should say last 1 week, or last 2 weeks, or last 5 days, or last 3 days, or next 5 days. So several days is very vague. I can't predict what it is. So the requirement is not refined and clear. The user story is not very refined and clear, right? So this kind of vague terms we really want to focus. Okay, instead of that, if I say that store the next day's weather data, or next 5 days is even very specific, and next day, the immediate next day weather data. So we can say in this way. And then next thing is that conjunction. As a written user, I enter the option to save a credit card number and select it for future purchases, so that I don't have to type in all the data each time I buy. So conjunction, and I enter the options to save a credit card number and select it for future purchases. So you can split it into two user stories, and we can accommodate only one user stories in one sprint. Save the credit card number and then separate story, select it for future purchases. Okay, so we can keep it in a separate way. And then we can use it. Say for an example, in one and two options, if you say save credit card number to my profile, offer the options of using a saving credit card number on a purchase in the second option. So this few, some, many, various, several, etc., and so on and so on, these are all few vague terms and conjunctions. We as a scrum master, and along with our developer and product owner, we should be very focused on this kind of terms to avoid having multiple a requirement in a single user story. Okay, this is also another one hidden thing where we can see in many user stories. Okay, so this we need to really focus. So these are all slicing techniques. Apart from that, as a team or as a scrum master, what shall we do? Collaborate with other team members in complex or distributed projects. Certain user stories may require the collaboration of multiple teams. For an example, okay, so your user stories may change in requirement of the front and back end database layers of the product, or it may affect multiple components or services. If you are having multiple component in the same user stories, then that time we should coordinate with the other team members, and we can slice it and we can split it, or otherwise we can organize in the way how we can achieve it in the single sprint. Okay, for that, how we can do it? Coordinate our goals and dependencies. Okay, so that is main thing. We need to align with the goals. All the teams are not cross functional. Sometimes we may have front end developer alone. For few cases, back end developer we may rely with someone else. So in that case, properly we want to collaborate with them. Okay, so next option is that adapt to changing requirements. It's not only like the user stories are very big. We need to constantly look for the feedback and market conditions. Based on that, we want to review and refine our user stories and properly update the tools like product backlog, sprint backlog, or product roadmaps very often, or in every sprint. Okay, that is always appreciable if you are refining our product backlogs and sprint backlogs, not sprint backlogs, product backlogs in every um, refinement sessions in every sprint. That is always helpful. We can have the refined great user stories. So it's not like slicing alone is an option to help to reduce the user stories, reduce the size of the user stories, or extending the sprint length alone is options. We are having multiple options to achieve this one. And stakeholder involvement, do demos properly, prototypes or user testing, so that we can get to know that validation and verification, and based on that we can write our user stories properly accordingly. So clear communication and collaboration, discipline and the transparency, one of the empirical pillars of scrum, transparency. So keep it very transparent and make the changes effectively, communicate with the team and collaborate, which will really help you to have the proper user story where we can work in the single sprint. Inspect and adapt. Okay, it's wonderful thing where scrum and agile lies feel that as a heart, right? So inspect and adapt, regular review meeting, regular retro meeting, and check team health, how it is, everything. So based on that we can inspect and adapt our user stories, even our process, everything. Okay, send feedback. And it's not only like embracing based on the feedback. So we as a scrum master or we as a agile team try to always horizon our skill set and the niche where we want to reach, like go through so many platforms, blogs, podcasts, or online communities to learn from their experiences and discover best practices. And remember, continuous improvement is key in handling user stories. So we need to go through the blogs and try to explore more options and opportunities and put the thoughts in it and make our team very continuously improving one. Okay, so these are all the few things we can do to accommodate the user stories in a single sprint, apart from slicing, apart from expanding the length of the sprint. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you so much, Sunan, for this opportunity. Hope this presentation helps you a lot.